Everybody, quick update on Blues Clues here. It's been a long time, and quite frankly, I have not shot any video through all the work that I've been doing on this truck just to get it on the road, because sometimes you just need to not shoot video and go heads down, and it's sort of, you know, more stress-free that way, I guess. Although this was extremely stressful up until today when I think we got everything sorted. So I'm just gonna do a real quick walkthrough for you, not editing this thing or whatever, just gonna ramble on. You can watch or don't, listen or don't, doesn't matter to me either way. So basically, real quick recap of this truck. 78 Sierra Classic C15 GMC, obviously. Heavy half truck. It is extremely low mile, very original, very stock truck. Let's see. Axle flip in the rear, spindles and springs in the front. Yeah, it's a mess, I know. I'm waiting for, we're gonna have an update on this truck too, as I prep for drag week. Big changes coming to this truck, including a bit of a fuel cell. And anyway, back to old Blues Clues here. So bought this truck in Pennsylvania, very low miles. I redid the interior. I've gone through and color corrected, blah blah blah, put the tonneau on. I mean, this truck is super original, great street truck. I love driving this thing. It had from factory, just another reminder for those new to the channel, from the factory it was a diesel. So special order truck to have a diesel and a heavy half. Pretty rare, but it was ordered that way. 373 rear gear, 12 bolt, 2-piece drive shaft, heavy duty leaf springs, blah blah blah, the whole deal. This truck is a blast to drive, and it's a head turner for sure. So in the 80s, somebody pulled, the original owner, who was a mechanic, he pulled the diesel out because they were garbage. They were those Oldsmobile based 350 diesels, quote, converted. I don't care, say what you will, disagree or agree, but that's what happened. That was pulled out and replaced with an Oldsmobile Rocket 350 motor. That was pretty common in the 80s and 70s with these junk 350 diesels that they put in these trucks. In fact, Justin Kramer on Fuel Injection Sucks YouTube just bought one of those low mile Goodwrench crate diesel 350 BOP garbage motors, but he got it running. He's got plans for that. So that Rocket 350 was a dog. No power. There wasn't any sense putting a cam in it. The truck needed exhaust, and in order to do that, it would have been, I don't know. I hated that motor for a number of reasons. It ran fine, just was gutless. So I pulled it out and LS swapped it. This is an LQ4 with a Truck Norris cam. Nothing crazy, nothing super hot and special. You have seen this truck catch on fire if you're not new to the channel. I had an issue with some parts that were bad out of the box, filled the motor with fuel, lit it on fire. Anyway, that's all fixed now. Going back through it. And yeah, so effectively went through this motor when I got it. It was like a 350,000 mile motor. Cam bearings were fine. Dropped in, let's see, I believe these are bigger injectors in this truck. Maybe not. Might be, actually, I think these are the factory injectors. This motor came out of a 2001 2500. It's got a 4L80E behind it, which came out of the same truck, super high miles. It's not spitting out more than you'd want it to, so that thing's in great shape too. Amazon or eBay special air intake works fine. I've got Speed Engineering headers on it, Speed Engineering plug wires. Let's see, it's still the truck setup, accessories on the front, truck intake, truck throttle body, all that's stock. Like I said, truck Norris BTR cam with all the BTR goodies that go along with that. Not that you need them, but with 350,000 miles, it was probably smart to put the trunnions in and put the springs and the push rods and LS7 lifters and all that fun stuff. So it's all fresh. 317 aluminum heads, factory AC in the factory AC location using the Tejas mounts, the motor mounts, and behind this exhaust, these headers have the Speed Engineering X pipe. Works really nicely. I put Flowmasters on it because I love an LS with Flowmasters in an old truck like this. It just sounds just the way I want it to. These are 40 series, I believe. And then let's see, I had to use the cross member from the Speed Engineering X pipe kit. That thing fit up pretty good. We did have to cut it, but just to get it to fit the way I wanted it. And then the cross members in there. So moved away from the factory cross member, which I had originally. These things just bolt right in to these trucks with all the right combination, which I do have figured out. Factory air, like I said, works in the truck, plugged into the LS compressor. I put a new condenser in the truck here. So we've got, let's see, we've got a trans cooler, a condenser, and it's hard to see, but I put also the diesel. Maybe this is actually the big block radiator, but it stays 190 degrees. The trans never gets over 130, even when you're beating on it. And the air conditioner works great. I think it gets down to like 38, 36 degrees, even on a hot, humid summer day in Florida. So now, this truck, I've really only got, I think, 1,500 miles on this LS swap on the build. I blew up the rear end. It was a long, original rear end in this thing. It's a 12-bolt truck rear. They do not have a good reputation in terms of the small bearing being weak in the front. But my guy Steve in Sarasota, who builds the rears for me, did this one up, bolted her in, and all, brakes and all that stuff in the back, everything's new and rocking and rolling. So this is another 373 gear. We kept it the way it was, and runs great. So this, after I fixed that, I started having brake problems. It's like every time I would turn around this old truck, once we did the swap, it was like a domino effect, which is pretty common and typical. You start throwing a little bit more power than that old POS Rocket 350, barely even probably had 200 horse. I bet it was like 190 horse, that thing, and it was a dog. So you add more power and everything behind it wants to break. Then I'm running LS fuel, power steering pump, and because this truck was a diesel from factory, it's got Hydroboost. If you're not familiar with Hydroboost, it replaces or is an alternative to a vacuum boosted setup, which is most common in half-ton pickups. But when you've got diesel or big displacement motors from factory, even today, my 2005 Silverado, or Sierra rather, with a 6-liter, and the what is that thing? I guess it's the 6.6 in my 22 Silverado. They have Hydroboost as well. Diesels don't make great vacuum down low, especially. Big displacement motors have the same problem, and then you add a cam and it becomes even worse. Now I have a vacuum booster in that truck and it does work pretty well. That thing for some reason makes a ton of vacuum. But this one was Hydroboost, and I really, really like the feel of Hydroboost. I've got it in this. The dually has Hydroboost, and like I said, both my other trucks do as well. So the pedal feel is great. It's just tons of stopping power. You don't need vacuum. Just always really good braking, and of course runs on the same system as the power steering. So effectively, you got a reservoir here just like you would for power steering. The high pressure line comes out, goes through the Hydroboost, out of the Hydroboost, into the steering box, and then you've got low pressure from the Hydroboost and from the power steering box, or the steering gearbox, that run back in to the reservoir, right? So we've got 2 low pressure returns and 1 high pressure feed out. And so I started after the rear was replaced, and this was just ironic that they happened at the same time or close to each other, but I started having issues with the brakes. And ultimately what I thought the problem was, and it was a problem, was the proportioning valve. So this is the factory proportioning valve. It's kind of, I mean, it's funky, it's gross, it was old. Effectively, the way these things work, I don't think I have all the parts here, but anyway, inside, so you've got your front line from the master cylinder, your rear line, and then the outputs to the 2 fronts, and then the rear here, which tees off in the back to the wheel cylinders. But inside here is a shuttle that goes back and forth. And when that shuttle, oh, here it is right here. Let me turn this light back on. So here's the shuttle. And effectively, this would screw in here, and then you've got, see that indentation that's there, and this rides inside in a chamber, right? And so the purpose of this is to effectively monitor the brake pressure that comes in here in the front and the rear. So let's say your front brakes blow a hole in the line, this shuttle will move over and actually block the fluid from leaking out of the front anymore, so you still have rear brakes, and it diverts higher pressure to the rear. If you lose your rear, same thing happens. That shifts this way, diverts more pressure and more fluid to the fronts, so you still have good stopping power, or better than you would without this thing moving, and you'd leak all the front from the front reservoir in the master and not have enough pressure going to the rear, because this thing is also regulating that pressure between the front and rear brakes. It's like 70-30 or 80-20% going between the front and rear, with most of your braking power in the front. If you lose that, you've got a big issue trying to stop a big 4,500 pound truck with only rear drum brakes and limiting the fluid that goes back there. So anyway, this thing, what I thought happened, and I'm still pretty confident that it did, I think I got air in the brakes shortly after we did the rear, because I put new wheel cylinders on. And so we went through and we bled the brakes, but they weren't bleeding like I really wanted them to. And I think what happened is that this thing started shifting a little bit this way, and it was so gummy and gross inside here that it never actually returned. Now there's a tool that goes in here, and effectively the reason that there's a big divot in the middle of that is because you've got this brake switch, right? And this screws in here, and then when this thing shifts, it will ground that out and actually turn on your brake light, right? So as long as it's in the center and you've got equal fluid on both sides of this for front and rear, your brake light stays off until it makes contact with that switch. Then it grounds it, and the light comes on the dash. Now, I'll be honest, I don't have the brake light hooked up to the Dakota gauges and that. I should, but I didn't. I don't. So you can take this thing out from this port here in the center, and then you can keep this shuttle centered right in the middle of that by putting a piece of aluminum tool that threads in there and keeps that thing from shifting. Then when you're done bleeding, right, because when you bleed, you could get air in the front or rear, and then this shuttle thinks, oh, I lost brake pressure, boop, I'm gonna move over. Or I lost brake pressure in the rear, boop, move over, right? So you wanna keep that centered. You know you're gonna be pushing air through this, and the pressure differential between front and rear will be a problem. Anyway, long story short here, this thing shifted and never went back, and I couldn't get it back. So I had to take this out. This thing is plastic, and I couldn't get it out in the truck. These trucks, they have these master or proportion valves in a terrible location on the front cross member. It's almost impossible to get to even with the lift. So I ended up putting a new proportioning valve in. Well, that proportioning valve was bad out of the box. It was an Amazon valve. So I ordered a bunch of other ones, but then I ended up going through, here's two more. And I ended up going through and actually modifying the bad valve so it was machined correctly. And now everything's fine with that. So I bled all the brakes, everything looked wonderful. However, I would drive this thing into town and all of a sudden the brake pedal would get rock solid. I could not hardly move it. I basically lost power brakes, so the Hydroboost was acting wonky. I bled and bled and bled this thing. Effectively, you fill the reservoir, you jack the front up, you turn the wheel, turn the wheel, turn the wheel, turn the wheel, and it should bleed the air out. But remember, this thing also operates power brakes, not just power steering. So you need to press the brake pedal as you're turning the wheel and do all the things. But I still had issues. I would drive into town, the brake pedal would get real stiff and hard, and all of a sudden it would release, boom, and the brake pedal would go to the ground, and the truck would almost touch the front bumper on the ground. And after that, it would be fine. Now, I was thinking, okay, maybe there's air still stuck inside, and it's pretty common. These things are a bit of a pain to bleed. Anyway, I also was using 6AN lines like this guy. I fabbed these up, and they worked, but the Hydroboost system, power steering and power braking, this thing's a whole like 1,300 or 1,200, somewhere around 1,000 PSI. So one of those fittings did start leaking, so I swapped both the lines out. Then I started reading, oh, they make a lot of heat. Well, yeah, I could feel that, right? And so what then I realized is I could drive this thing into town in the morning. It was good till I got into town, shut the truck off, come back out from the store or Wawa, wherever I was, start again. That's when the brake pedal was real solid. Or I could drive at highway speeds and then get into stop and go traffic, and it would act up. That's when the pedal would get hard again. Well, come to find, these things are notorious for generating a bunch of heat, and there's a dump valve inside of this that when you press the brake pedal, bypasses all that and then returns low pressure back to the reservoir when you press the brake. I think what was happening is that dump valve was getting stuck, something was wonky. Anyway, I ended up just today adding, not sure if you can see it, but a power steering cooler. And that is not power steering fluid, that red, that's some kind of mark on the line. But anyway, I added this power steering cooler to the front and redid all the lines. I ended up getting factory, let's see, this line here, that's the high pressure that comes from here, over here, that's high pressure. This is high pressure. Any case, this line here is a 1986. Oh, let me back up. Yes, that's a 1986 line with an adapter to go from double flare to O-ring flare. And here's why. You cannot get a 1978 Hydroboost unit for these trucks or vehicles anymore. You can maybe find someone who will rebuild that for you. And Bill and I did try to rebuild it. I ended up cutting the tip of my finger off. It was a whole thing. Not a good experience. And then it leaked. So we ripped that thing off, and the only thing I could find was a I think it's like 83 to 86, 82 to 86 Hydroboost unit. Pretty common. And the difference, though, is the bolt pattern is just barely different to go through the firewall, because the one that was in a 78 was a standard SAE thread. We moved to now metric, and then the lines are different. So here's one of the lines that was in the 78 Hydroboost. And by the way, I had just replaced these lines because the old ones were leaking. But that's a double flare on both ends. All the stuff from 78 was double flare. The whole power steering and power braking Hydroboost system, all double flare. And in fact, this is the steering box from a 78. I've never replaced that. I think maybe somebody did at some point, maybe not. But anyway, you can see I had to put this adapter on because this line is from a 1986 C10 pickup, and it is O-ring flare, which looks like this. Much different from the double flare that we saw on that line. So I had to adapt that. Classic Performance Parts makes a little kit. You end up only using one of the two adapters that they provide with that. And then, yeah, so that allows it kept me from having to replace the steering box with an 83 to 86 steering box. Nothing wrong with that box, works fine. It's returning fluid, the whole deal. The thing is, all of these fittings inside here, these three lines, are also O-ring flare as opposed to double flare. Not a big deal, but I did have to get all new lines. Then, down here, where that goes into the power steering reservoir, you need to be sure that you're not using this, which is what came out of the 78 power steering reservoir. That's double flare, right? And yeah, it's a whole thing. You got to really piece all these things together. If anyone's watching this and is like, what in the heck? I'm doing the same thing. Just reach out to me. I can give you some guidance. Now that I got it all figured out, I feel pretty good about it. Anyway, this is the one from the 6AN line. That stupid thing broke off, but this is an O-ring flare. I did have a bunch of power steering pumps from LS's and ended up just swapping that little valve orifice thing out, and then I could put the O-ring flare line. This line here is from a 2005 Silverado 2500, and the thing about it is it fits this in the frame really nicely. It clears the, it's hard to see it, but it does clear the steering reservoir, and there was no bending or manipulating. It kind of gives a nice 90 degree, which is what I needed. So to recap, effectively 86 Hydroboost. This is a low pressure return line. I just used power steering. Check this power steering line out. It's kind of weird. Anyway, I just used regular low pressure power steering line, some fuel injection clamps. That runs down here, and then the same deal, or it goes through the cooler rather, and then back in. It's dropping like 20 degrees in temperature before and after the cooler. And then this other high pressure line that goes from the booster down to the gearbox is from also an 86 C10 pickup. A master cylinder, holy smokes, another issue I had. You got to make sure you get the right bore. This is an AC Delco master cylinder. Part number right there, 19176-498. It's an 18M as in Mary 160. That's what you need to fit onto an 86 Hydroboost unit because the bore is correct. However, I think when they rebuilt this, just like I think the dump valve was screwy, they didn't put the right rod in. So I did have to grind the master cylinder piston so that the rod would make contact, because, or I could have put spacers in between the master cylinder and the Hydroboost, but I didn't want to do that because water and crap gets in there and debris. So I ended up just taking a carbide bit and drilling the end. I can show you here actually on this master cylinder. You can see that this is rounded. So this master cylinder is like a brake best or something from O'Reilly's. Anyway, it's rounded, this cavity here. The rod from the pedal through the Hydroboost makes contact here, but it was like squared instead of rounded. There's supposed to be like a little like acorn kind of nut thing on the end that fits in there. Well, it didn't. So I just had, when I bolted the master cylinder up to the Hydroboost like it is here, so it's flush, it was actually engaging the master cylinder, so I was dragging brakes. What a mess. I mean, just if anything could have gone wrong with this, it did. Now, we drove it today for about 45 minutes into town with the cooler, with all the lines correct, with the power steering pump. Oh, the other thing that was suggested, Hydroboost, everybody running like Duramax and stuff with Hydroboost, beating on them, says to use this Max Life high mileage stuff. I gotta say, it is a different thickness, sort of viscosity, and after I ran that, it just, everything kind of came together. One problem that I was having before we figured out the dump valve problem, I think I might have had air, combination of air, dump valve, and overheated Hydroboost through that fluid not being able to cool for whatever, because I think of the dump valve and air combination. What would happen is you could have this thing running and you could turn this thing to full lock, and when you would go full lock, or sometimes not even, like when the brakes would lock up and the pedal would get real stiff, anytime you would turn the wheel, the pedal would depress. So anytime I'd turn, I would actually hit the brakes just by turning. So that obviously wasn't good or correct. Anyway, all that stuff is gone. Bill and I flushed as much as we could. All the new lines and everything, and the little fitting on the back of the reservoir, plus the addition of the cooler, we had zero problems. The brake pedal felt better than ever since I've owned this truck, even with the old 78 Hydroboost. We are stopping, we are going, we're shifting, we're doing all the things that this truck is supposed to do. I just love driving this truck. It is such a different experience from driving that. Of course, a different experience from driving that. We'll touch on that. Look how pretty it is, huh? It's coming there. It's coming together. Yeah, the door was repainted a different white, but look at that trim I put on. I put wheel arch trim. That thing is coming together. It's almost ready to get on the road. This is getting a treatment for drag week. We're going to go fast. And this one here is just my street cruiser. The old Corvette. She needs some attention too. So does the Camaro. Anyhow, I'm super happy with the way this thing has finally come together. I was really getting frustrated by it, losing my patience with it. But, oh, and then we were bleeding the system off today, the Hydroboost system, and I started leaking freaking brake fluid from the master cylinder. So I had to go through and re-flare the line, and it was fine. But I'm telling you, if one thing could happen, it's happened to this truck. I mean, to the point where even when I chunked the rear, it came through the rear case, the cover. It wasn't good. I ended up having to get it towed about a mile up the road to get it here and pull the rear out. There's not much left to replace on this truck. It's got a new engine, new radiator, new transcooler, new condenser, new power steering cooler, new power steering pump, new alternator, new master cylinder, new Hydroboost, new rebuilt-ish transmission, which leaked and did all the things, but I sorted through that. Drive shaft is original two-piece, new rear end, new brakes all around, new calipers, new wheel cylinders, new pads, new drums, new shoes. I mean, new gauges, steering wheel, steering column's good. Yeah, like, what else is there? Oh, don't worry, I'm sure it will tell me, and we'll have to get back to it again. But high level, she's ready to drive, ready to rip. I'm excited. Going to drive it some this weekend and make sure that it's the way it's supposed to be. But that's it. Just wanted to give you a quick recap because I haven't done anything except work on this truck, and it is taking my time away from the white truck. In between waiting for parts for the blue truck, I have been on the dually a bit. You could see I'm excited to get that on the road. We did a SOS with soap scrub down, and I'm going to do a Poppy's patina on that just to bring some shine. And I've never done it, so that should be pretty cool. But that's it. Thanks for watching. I know it's just me rambling, but again, if anyone's got questions about Hydroboosts and the problems that I've had through that, I love the Hydroboost. It's way better than a vacuum system. I can't recommend it enough. You just got to sort it, and I think we got it. So that's it. Thanks. See you soon.